Minors and Majors welcomes you back. MLB Network Radio. Grant Paulson with you. Pleased to be joined right now by a really intriguing name in the first-round mix in this first-year player draft. Garrett Whitley was one of the top high school outfielders in the country, plays at high school ball in New York, where he has become one of the marquee players in this class over the last couple of months. Garrett, thanks so much for the time. How are you?
I'm doing well, Grant. How are you?
I'm great. I appreciate a couple of minutes. So let's start the interview by just familiarizing my listening audience with yourself. Give me an idea of really when you started playing baseball, when it was you realized that you were a special talent compared to some of your peers, and when you thought you might actually be able to become a blue chipper in high school and maybe ultimately a high draft pick.
All right. Well, I've been playing baseball my whole life. I can't remember ever a time not playing. And, the game just kind of came to me, I was always out. I was always playing it. I never wanted to put the ball down. So, of course, I got better and better at it. And by the time, I was older, I was one of the better guys on the team always. And really the first time I realized that the draft even was a legitimate possibility was last summer when I went out to the area code games and played in that showcase and at the East Coast Pro Showcase. And that was the first exposure I had against the top level of high school competition. I realized, I could play with those guys.
Those area code games, the East Coast Pro, the showcases you've been a part of, I think really helped to put you on the map. Did you know going in what was at stake, that was an audition of sorts to kind of crowbar your way into the top of the draft board, or did that just kind of come after the fact without you thinking about it much?
I knew that it was that's what I was there for, get my name out there in front of pro scouts and everything. I didn't do a whole lot of thinking about the draft, though. I wanted to go out and prove to myself and prove to everybody else that I was that type of player, too, because, like I said, that was really my first exposure against those type of players. Before that, I played local ball. I played American Legion and with my local Babe Ruth high school teams and stuff. So I was never out there playing against those guys, and I really just wanted to go out and prove to myself that I was that good.
My guest is considered one of the best high school talents in this draft class. A lot of people feel like he'll be one of the first several players chosen. You're not going to find a mock that doesn't have Garrett Whitley somewhere near the top of the first-round board. Let's talk skill set for a moment. You're listed at 6'2" and about 200 pounds. How accurate is that?
That's accurate.
Okay, so that's kind of what everyone's going with as far as the height and the weight. You look the part. As a high schooler, you kind of look like a man who could play in the NFL in the secondary or something like that. Have you always been in the weight room? Have your work habits kind of been the same for a few years? Where does the knowledge and experience on kind of making your body look like a professional come from?
Well, my dad has been a big influence on me in that he's not a professional athlete or anything, but he's very into, fitness and eating right and working out. And so it was always important in my household to keep your body in good shape. And he let me know that if I was trying to do things with my sport, you got to work in the weight room too and make sure your body's ready. So him and also my high school coach, same sort of thing, real big into weightlifting. So I did his programs earlier in high school, and as I got older, I did more advanced sort of things to really, I guess, work on that, like you said, kind of pro body sort of thing. And I've always recognized that getting after it in the weight room it's an important thing, because your body's got to be where you need it to be if you want to be the best player that you can be.
And you're listed, obviously, as a center fielder by trade. Is that the position ultimately when you talk to scouts or executives from teams that might draft you, where they see you long-term staying in the middle of the outfield and playing there as you get a little bigger and continue to grow? Could you become a corner outfielder? What's the consensus from what you can gather on a defensive position?
The consensus seems to be that I'll stick in center, and that's where I like to stay.
Why do you want to play center?
It's comfortable to be there. I feel like I have the speed and range to cover that. It's big out in center field, and I could play corner. I'd have no problem playing corner, but I like to play center. I like to be in the middle of all the action.
I was reading recently about a couple of things about your game that you want to clean up, and we can get to those in a moment, but you do so many things at a plus level as far as prep players go in this draft class. Let's start with just some strengths that you're particularly proud of for people who have never seen you play. Give me an idea of the type of player you are and what you bring to the field and things that you're fond of about your game.
All right, my favorite parts of my game are probably my speed for one, and my power, my bat speed. Those are the two things that a lot of scouts point out to me too, saying like those are my two best tools. The power really is something. It's always been there, but I really started tapping into it a little more since this past summer. Once I got working with scouts and stuff, that higher level of teaching helped me really be more consistent with that. And then the speed's just something that's come natural. And those are my two favorite things. Hit the ball a mile and then steal bases too.
That's kind of
like
the
that.
combination everyone's looking for, too, is that power, speed, someone who can mash the ball but then is a catalyst on the base paths as well. It's rare anymore. It's a really neat gem of a find when you can grab a guy anywhere in the draft that can go 25 homers, 25 steals or something like that. You look at by position in the major leagues, it's just rare, particularly in center field anymore, because more times than not, center fielders aren't hitting for a ton of power. You got the rare guy like Adam Jones, but those guys are few and far between.
Yeah, very true. Adam Jones is really one guy that I looked up to and have looked up to. Him, I'd say he's in my top three favorite guys. They're all three center fielders, actually. I like him, I like Mike Trout, and I like Andrew McCutchen. And all three of them are great center fielders with speed and power.
What would you want to take from those guys? Like, as far as differentiating Jonesy from Kutch, from Mike Trout tracking baseballs and hitting the way he does, what do you like about each of those guys individually?
Well, Trout's my favorite, and I gotta say with him, it's probably just because I see similarities between us. He's a Northeast guy. He's from New Jersey, and you always have that, that Northern prejudice where they're saying, we don't play outside year round, and so these guys aren't as good or they're more raw, and clearly that's not true. At least in certain with certain guys, and I think we get a little bit of a bad rub up here, but so I love that he's out there, and he's one of the best, if not the best player in the game. Plus, being a big guy too, he looks like a linebacker, but he runs too, and I like to think that that's the type of player that I could be, a big dude who covers a lot of ground and hits for power. McCutchen's just, I just love watching him play. Everything about him just looks so smooth and just comfortable up there. And same with Adam Jones.
Garrett Whitley on minors and majors. His name has come up at the top of the draft board with the Arizona Diamondbacks over the last couple of weeks. He's expected to be taken somewhere in the first round, and he joins us here on MLB Network Radio, breaking down playing center field and some of the guys he admires. I like what you had to say about Trout, because I remember covering that draft class going back a handful of years ago. He went 25th overall. If he's from Texas or Florida or California, I'm not sure that would have happened. But Northeast, there was some bad weather, tough to see him at times. I'm sure there were some scouting trips that got canceled. It is kind of hard. And that doesn't just happen on the East Coast. I mean, you look at like a guy like Jordan Zimmerman with the Washington Nationals from Wisconsin, where he played his college ball. Same thing, second-round pick. Should have gone a lot higher than that. Geographically, sometimes, I guess, Garrett, you're right. You could speak to this better than I could, but that probably does really hinder guys or help sometimes, depending on where you're from on the map.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually gotten pretty lucky with the weather this year. Once we finally got started, we got pushed back 2 weeks this year because of snow. And then the first couple weeks of our season, we were out playing. It was 30 degrees, 35 degrees. But we've only had one rain out so far this year. So once we got started, our season's really compressed. Our first game, I want to say, was April 11th, and then our last regular season game was May 15th. So pretty much 1 month of season we had 20 or 21 games in there, and that was it. But we managed to get all but one in on the day they were supposed to be played. So I actually got pretty lucky this year.
I saw where
Usually it's
a
not
couple
like
of the
that.
things that you said you really wanted to work on were your throwing arm, and that could be as much accuracy as the power with which you throw, and also base running. Base running to me is one of those things that just comes with time. It's the last thing to come, and sometimes top prospects will get called up to the majors from the minors and have some problems in that regard. So I think that's fairly normal. As far as the arm strength goes, because I saw you say that in an interview, what types of things are you doing to work on that, and give me an idea of how you think you've grown in that regard, dating back to the beginning of the season when you highlighted that as something to improve?
Well, there's mechanical things that have changed now, learning to come through the ball better and really use my momentum to put more power behind the ball and be more accurate with my throws. And I want to get on a throwing program, too. I haven't been able to as much as I'd like to so far, just because of time constraints with being outside and playing every day. And also, I don't exactly know what to do just yet. But once I have that level, once I have those teachers who can help me with that, that's definitely something I want to focus on, getting on a program and strengthening that arm and being more accurate and having better mechanics with that.
Garrett Whitley, widely considered the best high school prospect in the state of New York, one of the best prep outfielders in this draft class, and a very likely early to mid first-round pick here on Minors and Majors. So I read something about your off-season program, 4 days a week of lifting, 2 or 3 days a week of running, and then 5 days a week of hitting in the cage. Is that something that you did all off-season and then you pick up again when the season ends? Because obviously that's not a sustainable or necessary model during the year. I mean, who carved that out for you, and how do you feel like that makes you better?
That is something that I did all off-season. I started that once I got back from the showcases. I started probably mid-September with that. The lifting and the running aspect of it was put together by, I did a program with Cressy Performance, and they set me up. We were working on a few things, fixing some posture things and strengthening certain things and evening out and everything with the lifting and the running. And the hitting part of it, that was a lot of it's just me. I like to hit a lot. And in the winter, I have time to go 4 or 5 days a week. And then, so my day would be generally, I get out of school, I drive about a half an hour to the indoor facility that I hit, and I'd hit for an hour or so, drive back to my high school, lift for an hour and a half, or run for an hour, and then get home around 7:30, 8 o'clock. But I mean, it's fun. I like putting the work in because I know that every day I'm getting better, and I know that there's guys who aren't doing all that stuff. And also, I mean, I'm going to hit as much as I can because I just love it.
Sounds like something where you can't wait to get back in the cage. You committed to Wake Forest. Obviously, you got to wait and see how the draft plays out, see what becomes of that. But what went on to the decision for Wake Forest? I'm sure that was quite a process, and I wonder how much harder they started coming after you went 3 for 4 in that outing at the area code games in Long Beach.
Well, I committed to Wake before my junior year of high school, so I've been committed for a while, and it's just a great situation for me. I care about my education a lot too, so when I was choosing schools, I wanted to be sure that I was going someplace that I could get a great education as well as play good baseball. And I wanted to go down south where, the baseball is typically better, especially, playing ACC. And I could play outside more of the year and everything. Wake Forest just encompassed everything I was looking for in a school. And the coaches like me. It's a good situation for me, and yeah, that's why I picked it.
Garrett Whitley on Minors and Majors here on MLB Network Radio. How often at this point are you thinking about the draft? Do you picture yourself on draft night? Maybe the commissioner saying your name. Is that something that's a daily occurrence at this point?
The picturing and the fantasizing of it, I wouldn't say is a daily occurrence. It's definitely happening more now that we're closer to it than it did earlier in the year. But I don't like to think about that too much, just because I want to keep my head down. I'm still in my high school season right now, and that's what's important right now. I want to win, and I want to be there for my team. But thinking about the draft and all that comes with it, that's a fairly daily occurrence now. Being so close to that, there's a lot that's going into it, and a lot of people contacting me, and gotta stay on top of it. And it's a lot. So I'm thinking about it fairly often.
Are teams in contact with you constantly now? With like scouts you have a relationship with, asking of questions, or is a lot of that homework kind of done, and anymore there's not as much going on that front?
A lot of it's done, but a lot of it still seems like guys have stuff to talk about. I'll get a call with just a question or asking for an update about the season. Still in contact with them, is the game on for today? Are you taking BP today? But a lot of the homework stuff, the paperwork and just asking general questions, a lot of that stuff.
Well, Garrett, you've had an impressive season and really a really brilliant calendar year leading up to this. Best of luck to you. It's going to be an exciting few weeks culminating with the draft. Appreciate you joining me on Minors and Majors.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Garrett Whitley here on MLB Network Radio on Sirius 209 and XM 89.